What's going to happen for all those people who get injured by the V word for 9-1 DIVOC? Find out the details here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me. I'm right here on the Jimmy Rants Instagram page. Go follow me there. I am there Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so thank you so much for being here today. We also simulcast over here on Twitch, as well as on Facebook and on YouTube. Lots of places to find the show. Thank you all for being here today. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay over on the Jimmy Rants Instagram page. IGTV specifically is where it will be. And you can check it out there. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. If you type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Speaking of YouTube, today is the premiere of episode 5 of my show, One Step Deeper, with my friend Brittany. So today we have a very appropriate one. It's debuting at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Very appropriate topic for episode 5 for the New Year's week, because everybody's thinking about like changes and New Year's resolutions and things like that. So the topic we're talking about today is you can't change something that you hate. Ooh, it's going to be convicting, you guys. And yeah, when we started talking and got on the show, like within like 10 seconds, we were already one step deeper and we were like off to the races. So go join us live. Brittany and I both will be on a live chat for that over at YouTube. So go check it out, you guys, at 4 p.m. Eastern Time today on YouTube. Then finally, you can see all the past episodes of Jimmy Rants over at the official website. It is JimmyRants.com. And we have all the past episodes listed there. So before I get into today's topic, and it's a doozy of a good one, I wanted to give some props out to a friend of the show who is a fan of Jimmy Rants. She said, "Hey, I own a keto bakery. Could I send you some goodies for like Christmas and your birthday?" And my birthday was Sunday. I'm like, sure. So they arrived yesterday, you guys. And so I'm going to give them on the main feed here. I'm going to show you their Instagram page, Round To It Kitchen. So those of you watching elsewhere, Round To It Kitchen, ROUNDTUIT, and then the word kitchen. And they have a Shopify account that you can see listed there. But I have something that she sent. Mandy Hale is the owner. I'm going to go on each one. There is that one. In fact, let me go full screen so you can see it. You guys can see it. Full screen. Look at that thing, man. That is a whoopie cake is what I think she calls it. There you go, YouTube. There you go, Facebook. The whoopie cake. And it's totally keto. And so wasn't that sweet? She made me a cake for my birthday. And she has all kinds of little things that she sent. I think there was a pumpkin cake. There was a carrot cake. There was little muffins. All kind of little things. And then I did try yesterday. She had like a dark chocolate dipped biscotti. And so go check her out. Round To It Kitchen. I'm going to throw it up on the screen again. Round To It Kitchen. Go follow her over on Instagram. I'm going to, in real time, take a bite of this because I don't even know what it tastes like. I did tell her, I said, I hope it doesn't like blow my head off from being so sweet. And she said, no, I don't do them that sweet. But who wants to see me like take a bite? Well, no, you're probably upset because you're like, I want a bite. All right, so let's get a bite. Oh, wow. I better put this down. Wow. The cool thing, she told me that she uses like really fresh ingredients like real butter, almond flour. Oh, it's so dense too. Wow. That dog a hunt. So go check her out, Round To It Kitchen. And I'm going to take a swig of water because that's so rich. Mandy, great job. Wow. All right, now I'm like electrified for today's show. And I've got quite the topic today. And it's been a topic that's been bothering me since the whole idea of a V word being put out there became a thing. And we've been told all year long, we need to wait for the V word, wait for the V word, wait for the V word. And all of our woes will be over and the skies will open up and normality will be returned to us. Isn't that kind of what they promised us all year long? Yeah, I think it is. And so now that it's here, and now that we have millions of doses have been distributed from both Pfizer and Moderna, I know AstraZeneca is well on its way as well. They're next. I've got a lot of questions. I've got a lot of concerns. And we've been talking very openly about the pharmaceutical companies really not having any liability if somebody gets hurt. And what we've already seen just from the healthcare workers who have been out there getting this shot, most of them are fine. Let's be honest about that. Most of the people getting the shot seem to be fine. Some of them have had very acute adverse reactions. We saw the poor girl, Tiffany, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, pass out on live television. I posted about a nurse who got Bell's palsy after that first dose. And this is just the first shot. We haven't even gotten to the second shot yet. Second shot in all the clinical trials was when people started really having bad effects. So I say, hold on to your hats. We ain't seen nothing yet. But this is where we are right now. We are at the point where people are getting this shot, the first shot administered for the V word, and they're already seeing adverse effects, to which I have a lot of questions. Like, if we're going to go down this path of wanting everybody to take the V word as a preventative measure for 9-1 DIVOC, then shouldn't we be concerned if people start having adverse reactions? And of course, in the few people that have done it so far, there's been enough of a percentage. I've seen it as high as 3% of the people that have taken this 9-1 DIVOC have had some kind of an adverse reaction. And that's the reactions that we know about. Somebody right before I came on the air sent me a link to a New York Times article. I didn't have time to print it out, but a New York Times article that talks about a lot of people starting to have some mental health effects from taking this shot. And of course, every time I bring up anything negative or at least contrarian to the 9-1 DIVOC V word, I almost invariably have somebody push back. Oh, you're just anti-V word. You're just discouraging people. This is really the answer and da-da-da. Okay, fine. If that's what you believe and you're very comfortable taking this V word, go for it. Like, I'm not against people if they're making their own choice taking this V word. What I am against is not having conversations about the people that aren't doing well. And there's a bunch of people that are not doing well. Are we just going to ignore that and act like it's not happening? Are we going to pretend like, okay, that only happened to a few, but it's not the norm? Okay, great. But I want to know, as a consumer, as someone who ostensibly would be a candidate down the road to take this V word, I need to know if there's going to be an adverse reaction on my body from taking this V word. Don't you guys want to know that? Isn't that a fair question to ask? And I can see enough skepticism from people that it's a concern of a lot of people. To which, when you have all those people kind of push back, well, you just need to take it and you're crazy not wanting to take it and da-da-da. No, you're crazy wanting to take something that was rushed in 10 months. And I've been told it wasn't rushed. They've been working on this for years. Yes, they have been working on mRNA V words for years. Ever since the swine flu, H1N1, a decade ago, they have been working on it. But guess what? They always ended the trials before they put them on humans because every animal got sick. So yes, they've been working on them, but they've never been tried on human beings before the one for 9-1 DIVOC. Keep that in mind as well. And so with all these unknowns, and then the pharmaceutical companies having no liability whatsoever, that if you get injured and you have some permanent damage to your body as a result of taking this, you have no recompense. That's what we're going to talk about here today. And if you're joining us late, what will the U.S. government and FDA do for those who are victimized from taking the 9-1 DIVOC V word? because there are already people, and unfortunately it's people in the front lines. I feel bad for those nurses that are getting bad effects from taking this thing. And it's becoming real fast. And don't think that people aren't observing all this. Don't think that this is just going to fly by the under the radar, because people like me and others that care about patients and educating patients to educate yourself, we want you to know about this information. So, according to a Bloomberg article, more than 4.6 million shots have already been given. The U.S. has administered 2.13 million doses, the most of any other country right now. The primary one worldwide is from AstraZeneca, and it looks like Pfizer and Moderna are next, obviously, because that's the main ones here in America. And so a lot of people are like, okay, if you get hurt, can you sue? Is there a way to file a lawsuit if the 9-1-DIVOC V word causes you harm? So this is from concordmonitor.com. As new cases of 9-1-DIVOC and hospitalizations rise, the news that a V word will be available by the beginning of the year couldn't have come at a better time for people in the Granite State. So this is from Concord, is it Massachusetts? Whatever the Granite State is. Somebody correct me what the Granite State is. Of course, for every bit of good news, there's many unknowns. Laying aside issues of whether there will be enough of the V word available and how many will agree to take it, one issue that's not being talked about nearly enough, according to personal injury lawyer Heather Menendez, are benefits of those who experience long-term side effects from taking the V word or other injuries from procedures related to the pandemic. She represents individuals injured by V words as part of this thing called the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. VICP is what it's called. It's a federal program that was established after lawsuits against the V word manufacturers, the pharmaceutical companies, and healthcare providers threatened to cause V word shortages and reduce the rates of V word. Oh, somebody said New Hampshire. Thank you, Wholesome Explorer. That's the Granite State. Appreciate that. Concord, New Hampshire. The VICP began accepting petitions in 1988. It is a no-fault system that compensates individuals who have been injured by certain V words. However, currently, listen to this, the 9-1-DIVOC V word is not going to fall under the purveyorship of VICP. Instead, any injuries resulting from the 9-1-DIVOC V word will be covered under a completely different program, and this new program has fewer benefits to those who have been injured by any countermeasure to the 9-1-DIVOC pandemic. So they have a system in place, but they're not going to apply it to 9-1-DIVOC. Why? Why did they have to create a new program, and not just a new one that's less important, less able to help people who get injured by the V word? Like, we already know that there's somewhere between 2 to 3% of the people taking this V word having injury. Now let's extrapolate to 330 million people what 2% is. Guys, that's a lot of people. That's almost 7 million people going to be injured by the 9-1-DIVOC V word. And if 7 million people are going to be injured, are they supposed to suck it up, buttercup, and accept the risks of taking this shot? Is that on them? Is that their responsibility? And that's a low-end estimate. What if it's 10% of the population have an adverse effect? 10% of 330 million suddenly becomes 33 million. Now, do you see why this is serious to Jimmy Moore and why I wanted to address it here today on Jimmy Rants? Yeah, I mean, this is something that we need to be thinking through. How are we going to handle when these things come up? So the federal program that provides some relief for those seeking benefits related to the long-term side effects from V words and other pandemic-related issues is the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. CICP is this new program. It is administered by the Health Resources and Services Administration, which is a part of the Department of Health and Human Services. The problem is that the program is not being promoted. Did you know about this program before Jimmy Moore just brought it on your radar screen? I'm going to dare say no, that you had no clue of what the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program was. You probably had no idea. Here is the kicker about this program. This is about to make you mad, so sit down if you're not sitting down. If you're driving, pull off to the side of the road, because this is going to shock you. There is a 1-year statute of limitations for claiming any benefits. So let's say you take the first shot of 9-1 DIVOC V-word. You do okay. Then you get the second shot. If it's the Pfizer one, it's 3 weeks later. If it's the Moderna one, it's 4 weeks later. And you get the second shot, and you're moseying through 2021, and you're doing just fine. And everything's going great. And then you get to 2022, and something starts to happen in your body because of that V word. Sometimes it lies dormant and then manifests later. You have a 1-year statute of limitations. And you go back to them and say, hey, I got damaged. I'm having these issues. And oh, sorry, you went past the statute of limitations. 1 year. How are you supposed to know you're going to get injured? They're not thinking these kinds of things through. In the law, it states that the secretary shall ensure that a state, local, or Department of Health and Human Services plan to administer or use a covered countermeasure is consistent with any declaration under 264 days of this title and any applicable guidelines of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and that potential participants are educated with respect to all contraindications. Do you feel educated to all contraindications? I don't think they're telling us any contraindications right now. The voluntary nature of the program, in other words, oh, you signed up to get us to stick a needle in your arm, and so because you gave us that permission voluntarily, you're SOL. And which also brings up the question of if they make this compulsory to get this V word. That's another subject for another day. And then the availability of any potential benefits and compensation under this part. The statute says the government is supposed to promote the Countermeasures Fund so that people know about it. But who actually knows about it? Nobody. Nobody knows about it. They're likely not going to promote the CICP because of the concern that people just won't get the V word. The biggest thing is that there is a 1-year statute of limitations. This is that attorney speaking again. She explained that someone injured by a countermeasure such as 9-1 DIVOC V word right now could not seek any kind of recovery from the manufacturer. So if you took the Moderna V word and you got injured, you could not go after Moderna for anything. They're completely scot-free. Potentially liable parties such as V manufacturers are immune from liability under the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act. That individual could also not seek relief under the VICP, which is that other program that was already in place about dealing with these things. The only recovery available for that person is the CICP. If he or she does not make a claim within the 1 year, like we've been talking about, then that person has no other course of action for that injury. People need to know about this program. Do you see a class action lawsuit coming down the road? Because how do you expect people to take this V word because they've been made to fear 9-1 DIVOC so much? Oh my gosh, I've got to take this V word or the world's going to come to an end and I'll get this 9-1 DIVOC and die from it. Therefore, I feel compelled to take the V word. And then you do. And then you get injured, and then there's nobody to help pay for your injury. How is this fair? Class action lawsuit galore written all over this. How do they get away with it? Somebody has to be held responsible. The 1-year statute of limitations for the CICP runs from the time that the countermeasure was administered. So from the day you get that first shot, you got 1 year ticking. A lot of people don't know they're dealing with an injury caused by a V word. This is a big one too. Like, if you start to have issues going on, how are you going to know it's the V word that did it to you? I can't tell you how many people have gone to see their doctor. Doctor sees they have high cholesterol. They get put on a statin medication like Crestor Lipitor. They start taking Crestor Lipitor and they start having joint pain and aches and muscle aches and pain and their brain gets a little foggy and da-da-da. And the doctor tells them, oh, that's just, you're just getting older. That's just what happens. And they have no idea it's the statin that's causing all those issues. Well, it's the same thing here. People will get the V word and they'll start having little things pop up. They go see their primary care physician and they say, oh yeah, you're getting older, you got this going on, you got that going on, and therefore that explains the symptoms. And they never put two and two together. This is part of the problem, is maybe somebody is injured by the V word, but they don't know it because they're not putting two and two together. They don't immediately think, oh, I need to call a lawyer to represent me. They don't think that there's a 1-year statute of limitations that they have to get in time. I think most people wait and hope the pain just goes away on its own. But if a person's injury is from one of these pandemic countermeasures, then that person will be out of luck if they don't file within a year, period, because that's what's in the law. While most V-word related side effects would be apparent within 6 weeks to 2 months, it is unknown if this would be the case with the V-word for 9-1-DIVOC, because it's the first of its kind. We've never had an mRNA V-word before on human beings. It's never happened. So many unknowns, and they did not do the due diligence with the various phases of clinical trials leading up to this. They didn't. And so if they didn't do the proper investigation into this, to look at the safety, to look at the long-term effects, they haven't looked. You are now the guinea pig for the, unbeknownst to you, phase 3 clinical trial of these mRNA V words. Do you want to be the guinea pig? Are you willing to put yourself through that? And it's so sad seeing all these healthcare workers putting themselves out there, the people in the front line, and they're the ones getting injured first. The ones that are. And the compensation that's provided by the CICP applies to more than V words. Benefits can apply to any countermeasure that's applied to the pandemic. This includes V words, but it also includes ventilators, medications, antibody treatments, anything that could conceivably be considered a countermeasure to the pandemic falls under this fund. One difficulty with receiving benefits for these countermeasure V words and procedures is the result of the PrEP Act, which addresses liability immunity, talking about the pharmaceutical companies not being able to be sued. A declaration that was made under the PrEP Act by the Secretary of Health and Human Services back on March the 10th and made effective for February 4th, 2020 for certain medical products to be used against 9-1-DIVOC, countermeasures like V words, medications, devices, and other items recommended to diagnose, prevent, or treat a declared pandemic, epidemic, or security threat. The PrEP Act, which was enacted back in 2005, is the law which authorizes the CICP to provide benefits to individuals or the estates of individuals if they die who sustained a covered serious physical injury from the countermeasures used. The VICP is the better of these two programs, by the way, provides more benefits and protections to individuals than the CICP. In a Freedom of Information request with the Health Resources and Services Administration, the agency responsible for both administering the VICP and the CICP, asking for records regarding benefits paid for these injuries from these programs. While there have been files claimed, according to the DICP, a record search conducted by the agency stated they have not compensated any one single 9-1-DIVOC related claim yet. There have already been thousands of people that have been directly injured from just the V word. Now, this applies to any countermeasure. They've had no claims because nobody knows about this program. This attorney believes the public has a right to know how these programs are being administered and that the issue is time sensitive. For many, the financial consequences of not getting any benefits given the 1-year statute of limitations, could be catastrophic on their family. If someone is hospitalized for months, listen to this, and he or she is trying to learn to walk again, how is it possible that person is going to be able to file a claim within a year? A 1-year statute of limitation is simply unjust. The lawyer goes on to say, I was appalled to learn that V-word manufacturers are completely immune from any liability from the V-word for 9-1 DIVOC, and that any injuries from 9-1 DIVOC V-word will not be a part of this program. While most V-words are administered as a public health necessity and very few people experience injuries, the lawyer said that there's no denying there can sometimes be very serious injuries from V-words. Regarding the 9-1 DIVOC V-word, it's horrible that the public is expected to just gamble. You got to take a gamble on yourself. But if there's an injury, you have little to no help with that injury. Food for thought. I've been thinking a lot about this lately. The survival rate and recovery rate for people who get 9-1 DIVOC is somewhere in the 99+% range. If you're older, in the much older category, it's still 94%. Still very good. What if this pandemic was far worse? What if the survival rate was something like 70%, meaning 30%, 3 out of 10 people are dying from this? Then I could see them having this sense of urgency. But the sense of urgency is out of kilter. Not when you have 99+% of people getting this being completely fine. I mean, it's significantly higher than 99%. The young, especially under the age of 50, pretty much 99.997%, you're going to survive this. So why are we going to all these measures with something that's so risky? And then it's so risky, but you're not going to give people a chance to have compensation if something happens. It just doesn't seem right, does it? I have another article here from masslive.com that's down the same lines about facing bureaucratic black hole in Washington, D.C. The Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program, the CICP, has just 4 employees. So this is the group that's supposedly going to take care of the V-word problems for 9-1 DIVOC. 4 people. Decisions are made in secret. Government officials are the ones that do it, and they do it in secret. Claimants cannot appeal to any judge, and payments in death cases can be no higher, I don't know where they come up with this number, no higher than $370,376. That's the most they can get. And so they've paid fewer than 1 in 10 claims over the 15-year history. So this is the one that's been around for a while. Fewer than 1 in 10 claims, less than 10%. V-words historically provide broad protection with little risk, but come with side effects like any other drug. Few unexpected adverse effects have been reported in the early days, But experts are concerned that with the sheer volume of people expected to get this V-word in the U.S., even a successful rollout with relatively few ill effects could swamp the program. Again, even if we're looking at 1% of the population, and let's just say 200 million people of the 330 million in America, that's still a lot of people that would be injured for a 4-person office. We would definitely need to ramp up the office. We would get overwhelmed very quickly. A spokesperson for the Health Resources and Services Administration that oversees the program says that it's planning to process the potential influx of 9-1 DIVOC claims. Additional staff will be hired as needed. Unlike the more established federal V-word court, which decides cases of injury from childhood V-words and other common inoculations, the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program, remember CICP, was created by a 2005 law specifically dealing with V-words developed under the Emergency Use Authorization, which is what we're under with 9-1 DIVOC. The idea was to allow the pharmaceutical companies and government entities the freedom to develop and distribute these V-words to meet the urgent public health needs without the threat of being overrun with expensive liability lawsuits. Under the program, drug makers can only be sued for what's called willful misconduct. Have they not already created willful misconduct? I did a recent Jimmy Rants a couple weeks ago on an ingredient that they're putting in these V words that specifically we know have adverse reactions in people. It's a known toxin, and it's known to develop autoimmune disease in a lot of people. It's known for that. So would that be considered willful misconduct to put an ingredient in there, which apparently is a key ingredient to making these mRNA V words work, but it's a known toxin, a known reactivity that leads to autoimmunity. Is that willful misconduct? I think it is. I think it is. Several senators objected at the time that this passed, including the late Massachusetts Democrat Edward Kennedy, calling it a Christmas present to the drug industry and a bag of coal to everyday Americans. The vast majority of the claims under the program stemmed from the swine flu vaccine a decade ago. The low number of people awarded money, just 29 people were awarded money out of 499 people that filed a claim, reflects its design. Most claims have to be filed within a year, regardless of when the side effects show up. The program does not pay for lawyers, doesn't pay for any expert witnesses. It provides little opportunity for those filing claims to participate. The awards do not pay for pain and suffering. It's illusionary, according to a V-word lawyer. No one is going to actually get any compensation from that program. By contrast, if you go to V Court, it allows for claims within 3 years, pays for lawyers, pays for witnesses, grants awards for pain and suffering, and it will permit you to appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. The difference is reflected not only in the number of awards, but in the size of the awards. The countermeasures program has already paid out $6 million for an average award of about $200,000 a claim. And you might think, okay, that's good. But the V-word court has not only paid out 7 of 10 cases, 70%. Remember the other one, less than 10%. The court, 70+% of the cases are awarded damages. And its average claim, $570,000, more than 2.5 times larger. And it's $4.4 billion paid out over the past 3 decades. So it's a great argument for the anti-V-word people to say, oh my God, this is dangerous. If something happens to you, the program is going to turn their back on you. They said it would be helpful to know specifically why the claim is approved or rejected in the program. It doesn't release even the most basic details, such as the kind of sickness that people claim that they got. So if you do a Freedom of Information Act trying to find out why something was denied, you won't be able to find out what the people were claiming. One of the biggest reasons for rejection is that 1-year filing deadline. She recalled receiving dozens of calls. This is a lawyer that deals with V-words. She recalled receiving dozens of calls from people saying they'd been sickened by the V-word for H1N1 a decade ago, some complaining of possible symptoms of Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare autoimmune or immune system disorder that results in paralysis and death. It was just too late. There was nothing you could do. That was the case for another lady in Pennsylvania who filed a claim about a year after learning about her mother's V-word had triggered this syndrome in her and killed her. The clock started ticking, but she didn't show any symptoms. I didn't know what was happening to her. She started racking up tens of thousands of dollars in hospital bills. She was crawling down a hallway, her legs limp. A few days later, she died. I didn't know a V-word could do that. Think about all those people going to be taking this 9-1 DIVOC V-word, and they'll have no idea that a V-word can do that, whatever that is. No one is sure just how many of the more than 200 million Americans who are expected to receive these V-words are likely to develop severe side effects, and not everyone who does will file a claim. Only 1 in a million people who got the measles, mumps, and rubella V words first administered 50 years ago suffered severe reactions, but other V words had higher ratios. Using the 25 per million who suffered severe side effects from the H1N1 V word, for example, that would put the number of such cases from the coronavirus V words at over 5,000. That's more than 10 times the countermeasures program has ever received in its entire history. One solution is to shift coronavirus claims to the V word court, formerly known as National V Word Injury Compensation Program, but that court itself is trying to work through a backlog of cases. It has 8 judges currently taking more than 5 years to resolve any claim. Another problem with this is funding. Unlike claims in V word court, which is financed from a 75-cent excise tax on every V word shot, the countermeasures program relies on Congress for its budget. A $30 billion allocation by Congress to buy V words and finance other efforts to fight the coronavirus allows some of that money to be transferred to a fund to help pay claims, but none has gone over yet. See, here's the thing, these pharmaceutical companies are going to be making a killing off of this V word. I mean, billions, probably tens of billions of dollars. Can they not be required to have to pay into a fund that's like an escrow account for people that have these injuries? I'm not understanding why they can develop a V word, they can be not sued, but not have any liability whatsoever, no culpability financially that they have to pony up some money, and yet they're going to reap in all these tens of billions, maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars in profits from selling this V word. To me, it's unethical. They're making any grand profit at all. Okay, recompensate for the research and development. Make enough to make a living, but to have these billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars that they're going to potentially have from this V word in the midst of a global pandemic, to me is unethical. And they definitely should set aside some of that money to be there for people who are going to be victims of 9/1 DIVOC and the V word. They are. All right, I have one more article, and this one has some really interesting questions, all about the Pfizer and Moderna 9/1 DIVOC V words, as more and more people are having allergic reactions. And they talk about that specific ingredient that I did the Jimmy Rants on not that long ago, polyethylene glycol, PEG. Remember that? I did the Jimmy Rants recently about this. And so this article is from the Children's Health Defense.org website. And so the Children's Health Defense have been trying to warn the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, as well as Dr. Anthony Fauci, about the potential problems with anaphylactic reactions. And so they had a list of 5 questions they wanted to ask Dr. Fauci and the FDA. And it gets to the heart of what will they do about these people who have injuries from these V words. First question. Why didn't the FDA's Center for Biological Evaluation and Research require Moderna and Pfizer to conduct immunogenicity testing on their V words for anti-drug antibodies as recommended in their own agency's guidelines for drug development during the clinical trials? So in their guidelines, which are titled Immunogenicity Testing of Therapeutic Protein Products, which is what this V word is, developing and validating assays for anti-drug antibody detection, guidance for industry. So in there, they're supposed to test for immune responses to the therapeutic protein products. They have the potential to affect the pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamic safety and efficacy. They were supposed to do that. The clinical effects of immune responses in those subjects that are highly variable, ranging from no measurable effect to extremely harmful. In other words, the same V word reacts differently in different people. And it's because of that polyethylene glycol. That's part of the thing. Detection and analysis of the anti-drug antibody formation is a helpful tool in understanding potential immune responses. Information on immune responses observed during the clinical trials, particularly the incident of this induction and any other application of the responses about this. Accordingly, such information, if applicable, should be included in the prescribing information as a subsection of the adverse reaction section called immunogenicity. However, despite the FDA's own guidance recommending that information about this to be included on the packaging for the V word, no such information is included on either the Pfizer or the Moderna 9-1 DIVOC V word inserts. In other words, if you go to see somebody to administer the V word to you, usually you go to the doctor and they give you a prescription. They give you a big sheet of paper. It's got all the everything about that drug. Not with 9-1 DIVOC V word. Page 6 of the FDA document cites research that specifically addresses the need to adequately understand the risk of anti-drug antibodies in products with modifications such as pegylation, but without that information provided on the insert, V-word recipients just don't know that they are at risk. The rapidly developed and currently distributed mRNA V-words rely on a new nanoparticle-based carrier system that utilizes that PEG we talked about a couple weeks ago. The lipid nanoparticles carrier system used in the two 9-1 DIVOC V-words to facilitate the delivery of the mRNA in the cell is pegylated, which means coated with PEG. Coating this lipid nanoparticle with PEG keeps it from degrading, so that's why it's there. So these PEGs to proteins or drug delivery nanosystems is a widely accepted method to increase the therapeutic index of these biopharmaceuticals. Nevertheless, these drugs and agents are often immunogenic, which trigger the rise of anti-drug antibodies. That ain't good. Among those, anti-PEG, IgG, and IgM were shown to account for efficacy loss due to accelerated blood clearance, hypersensitivity reactions, which entail severe allergic symptoms with fatal anaphylaxis. I wonder if somebody has already died of the fatal anaphylaxis as a result of just the first dose. Remember, the first dose has gone out, millions of people. It's the second one. Be paying attention. Sometime in January, you're going to see viral videos of family members that are going to go, hey, my aunt who works as a nurse just died when she got the second dose. Watch. It's going to happen. It is mystifying how I never before utilized vaccine technology that contained a synthetic, non-degradable, and increasingly controversial PEG known to be associated with immune responses was allowed to bypass all of the bedrock of pharmaceutical development, which is immunological testing. So that was their first question. Second question, why does the FDA seem surprised by the recent reports of life-threatening anaphylactic reactions after the agency approved emergency use of two mRNA 9-1 DIVOC V words that contain this very ingredient, polyethylene glycol? They know! We've got to stop pretending like they don't know what that's going to do. They know. The FDA says they're not certain what caused all the reactions, but that PEG could be the culprit. You think? Guys, I hate it when we're deliberately lied to. When you trust people, especially with something like this, when you trust them inherently that they're going to do the right thing and take care of you and not harm you in any way, you don't expect them to willfully be this stupid or act like they're this stupid. He added that the reaction some people have experienced could be a lot more common than we thought. So you do a simple search for anti-PEG antibodies in PubMed, and you find 32,061 studies. This information is readily available to anyone with a little bit of scientific curiosity. Earlier this year, someone who suffers with life-threatening anaphylaxis from exposure to PEG products, notified us about his concerns related to the PEG that would be in the 9-1 DIVOC V word from Moderna. After we reviewed the scientific literature, we notified the federal agencies responsible for oversight of these. Through our research, we discovered that the scientists who once assumed the polymer were largely inert are now questioning its biocompatibility, and they're now warning about the particles in these PEGs to promote tumor growth and trigger adverse immune responses that could probably include underdiagnosed anaphylaxis. Researchers reported that these undesirable responses have occasionally halted clinical trials. So you might remember, in the midst of the phase 3 clinical trials for Pfizer and for Moderna and for AstraZeneca, I think Johnson & Johnson also had adverse reactions where they had to pause the trials. This is what happened. And yet they continued on the trials till they got the numbers that they needed. And then they got the emergency use authorization, and here we are. Is anybody comfortable with this? If these are all known things? So there was a call at that point, we need to replace PEG. Let's find something that will do the same thing or something similar to it. And then let's get rid of the PEG because we know it's a known problem. All right, so let me skip forward so I don't belabor the point. Their third question in this article, again, the Children's Health Defense Fund did this. Their third question about this 9-1 DIVOC V word: why did FDA officials not acknowledge the valid and scientifically supported concerns regarding the use of this ingredient PEG in the 9-1 DIVOC V words when they were first notified in September? So they've been letting them know for months about this. Despite the fact that the letter sent to the FDA requested a timely review of our concerns, the FDA did not respond until more than 2 months later on December the 2nd. They also sent it to Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Fauci has connections to this V word. And this is something not talked about either. How do you have the wolf in the henhouse, so to speak? Because if he has a vested interest in these V words, and he's out there, oh, everybody should get the V word. And then did you see the video of him getting the V word? He got the V word in his left arm. And the next day he was on CNN. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm recovering pretty well. I just have a little soreness in the arm, but it'll be okay. Dr. Fauci, your other arm was the one that got the V word. Why is your opposite arm a little sore? You feeling me here? You understand what's going on? And I hate being so skeptical, but they're making it so easy to be skeptical. So he has a huge conflict of interest. He is a direct partner with Moderna on their development of their V word. Fourth question: why did the FDA abandon its regulatory authority to the pharmaceutical companies developing 9-1 DIVOC V words? Totally gave up their regulatory duty. Isn't that what the FDA is for? Food and Drug Administration. They overlook anything related to the food industry and the drug industry. And so then the last question, let me go to that one. Number 5, will the FDA now require mRNA V word manufacturers to conduct assessments of the immunogenicity of this PEG lipid nanoparticles that's used in the 9-1 DIVOC V words? And will they also consider pre-screening? This is so key. Will they consider pre-screening all mRNA V word recipients for the presence of anti-PEG antibodies? I talked about this on my Jimmy Rants a couple weeks ago, talking about PEG. We need to be making sure if people, especially you ladies, wears those creams, This PEG is in like a lot of household products, personal care products. It's even in some food. And so if you already have this in your system and you've already developed anti-PEG antibodies, then you get injected with the 9,1-DIVOC V word, which has PEG, your body gonna react. And this is why you have the autoimmune response. Why are we not talking about that? Screening and monitoring the anti-PEG labs in blood before and during the treatment is of particular importance to provide safety and to maintain the therapeutic effects that you're looking for. The generation of anti-PEG labs can accelerate the clearance of the therapeutics, thus reducing its efficacy, meaning if you get this V word, it won't work as well if you got anti-PEG antibodies in your system. So re-exposure to PEG may greatly increase the chances for more adverse effects because your beta cell memory of the anti-PEG labs. So it's in all kinds of things. It's in e-cigarettes. You do the e-cigarettes. Medications have it. It's reasonable to assume a growing number of people probably have anti-PEG antibodies, right? We urge federal agencies that such screening should be recommended prior to administering any V word that uses PEG in its manufacturing, which right now all of the 9,1-DIVOCs do. Ideally, since anyone could unknowingly have these antibodies, how would anybody even have it on their radar screen unless they've had some adverse reaction before and then they tied it back? Most people have no clue whether or not they have anti-PEG antibodies. Do you? If you know that about yourself, good for you, but you're weird. You're the rare one. Most people would not. Everyone should be screened before you get either the Pfizer or the Moderna V word. At the very least, we recommend anyone who has had an undiagnosed allergic reaction consult with their physician and request testing for anti-PEG antibodies before you take this V word. So there we are, guys. The FDA, the US government, they have a duty, and especially if they're going to move to mandating this particular V word, I have a feeling that that's on the way. We've already heard rumblings about you won't be allowed to go to concerts, you won't be allowed to go to a restaurant and out in public until you show this little V word passport on your phone that you can bloop, and oh, yep, okay, you've gotten the V word, you're good. What if you can't? What if you can't take it? And the one that gets me is if you've already been exposed to the V word, exposed to 9,1-DIVOC, and you already have the antibodies, and you've already recovered, you've got antibodies. It's why do you need the V word? But they're pushing, oh yeah, you need the V word more than anybody. I'm thinking, no, you're immune. And then if you take this V word, you're supposedly immune forever? No, they've already talked about you won't be immune. You have to keep getting booster shots and booster shots and booster shots and booster shots for the rest of your life. And they don't think people that get hurt by taking this V word are owed anything. Is that disgusting to you? It is to me. And if I'm going to be held responsible for my own medical bills and other injuries that take place as a result of taking this V word, I'm going to take my chances not taking the V word. Because at the end of the day, my body, my host, is pretty healthy. And if I'm taking care of my host, which has been my responsibility all along, if I'm taking care of my host and 9,1-DIVOC enters my body, I'm going to let my host take care of it. My immune system, take care of it. My T cells, take care of it. I'm not going to let some injectable freaky science experiment go into my veins with God knows what happens once it's in there. It's not hard for me. It's not a hard decision to say no to the V word. I hope it's not hard for you. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. We're going to come here first to Instagram, then over to Twitch, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. A little bit of a longer one here today, but I wanted to make sure we got in all that information for you guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Oh, everybody likes the whoopie cake. If you missed it at the beginning, I have a Jimmy Rants fan who is a keto baker, and she's from this Round to It Kitchen is what it's called. So she made this little whoopie cake, and it's just, oh, she said leave it out because it'll get even more delicious. But look her up, Round to It Kitchen. All right. You know the media will not publish any negative V-word results. They'll hide it and bury it and lie. Yeah, that's what's happening already. Thank you, Cavaliers of my heart. And because they're very vested in each other. The media is heavily paid by the pharmaceutical companies. And so, yeah, there's this cozy relationship that these pharmaceutical companies know they're going to get great coverage of the V word, and they'll squelch any problems. And then social media is in there as well. They'll squelch any problems that are out there that people say they have. And then they're scratching their back at the pharmaceutical companies, and they're going to get paid to keep things quiet. It's a disgusting relationship. People trust drug companies way too much, says Joshua. They do. And even the medical kind of system, they trust that system way more than they trust anything else. Kim says the compensation for the V Court is funded by our taxes. Yeah. So yeah, if somebody gets injured, it does come out of the taxes. I wish they could, though, like I said earlier, make the drug companies have to fill that coffer just as an escrow account of some random arbitrary number of X amount of money annually that they have to put into that, because it's not fair to the taxpayers to have to share that burden without the drug companies who are benefiting the most financially from this having no culpability whatsoever. Would you buy any item like a car that if you were injured by their product, you had no recourse? Nope. Then why would you do it with your health? Great point. Thank you for that, Kim. Anita says the government told employers that they can require employees to get the V word. I wonder if there could be any recourse against the employers. I don't know the answer to that question. I would assume that if it was a directive from the government, that then the employers could say, well, I was made to do it by the government, and therefore you have to go after them. But, oh, yeah, you can't go after them, and round and round and round, and you see the convoluted mess we're talking about. Big Pharma owns the votes of our Congress. Some of these people represent the biggest donors, not the American people. The billions of dollars that went to other countries should be put into an account. Yeah, so they just passed this, or are in the midst of passing this 9/1 DIVOC relief fund. And yeah, there was more money that went outside the United States of America than remained inside. Why couldn't they have allocated a lot of that money into an escrow account for this very purpose of what we're talking about here today? And like Anita said, to compensate for the damages from the V word. Because they know there's going to be damages. And can you imagine being a family member of somebody that gets damaged because they took this? And you have no recourse? It's just unconscionable to me. Cariana says, so could a person add a PEG allergy to their medical record? Well, I guess, yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting you say that, kind of as a getting ahead of it before the V word comes your way. Go to your doctor and say, hey, I want to see if I have the anti-PEG antibodies. And if you could show that, you could have that test run. It'd be worth it to pay it out of pocket. No, I don't know if insurance pays for it, but you could say, hey, I want to make sure that when the V word comes around, it's my turn, that I know whether I have an anti-PEG antibody in my system or not. That could be powerful. And then, like, they couldn't make you take it if you had this paperwork that showed you would be at high risk for having injury. That's an interesting point, Cariana. Yeah, that's a really, really interesting point. Mopar says Miralax is pure PEG. Eat real food and stop taking laxatives, even the safe ones. Yeah, when I did my Jimmy rants a couple weeks ago on PEG, I said, yeah, the laxative Miralax specifically does have a crap load of it. So yeah, if you take those things and then you use like the personal care products, the creams and things that have it in there, it can build up, build up, build up, build up, and then you have all these antibodies for that PEG in your body. So then if you get shot with it, how do they expect your body to react? Anita says, are other countries also experiencing these issues about the V words? It's pretty much the same V word around the world. I have not seen one yet that's been developed that does not have PEG in it. I'll keep my eyes open for it though. But thank you for all the questions on Instagram. Let's pop over here to Twitch. Looks like Mr. Buckle Barney, Buckle She Barney says hello. Well, hello. Thanks for being my very first ever comment on Twitch. And I'll remind you guys, if you want to join on Twitch, Twitch is a cool little app. Just download Twitch and look up Jimmy Moore Rants. They didn't have Jimmy Rants. Somebody already had Jimmy Rants, but Jimmy Moore Rants, and you can watch the show from there. But thank you for being here, and thank you for giving me my first comment on Twitch. Really look forward to more interactions over there. And it also has a cool little replay that you can watch the episode over there once it's done. If all you know what breaks loose on Instagram, Facebook, and I get banned, Twitch is where I will be for sure. So check it out. All right, thank you, Twitch. Let's go over to Facebook. What's up, Facebook? Thank you guys for being here. Debbie says it is and has always been profit for these companies and their investors. I personally know people who have suffered from V-word injuries. Some have severely and others minorly, but as some of those age, other illnesses now show up. And that's the thing, like when you get a V-word injury and you start to get older, people just blame it on the older age. They don't think about, as you get older, you could still be thriving in your health. People just assume as you get older, you're going to decline in your health and you're going to have issues. This is why people don't bat an eye twice when they get a cancer diagnosis or have a heart attack or get Alzheimer's and all this. Oh, it's just old age. No, it's not. No, it's not. It has everything to do with your state of health, your nutrition, and now these kinds of things as well. It's pretty sad that people kind of justify it in their mind. It's okay to fall apart as you get older. I'll be damned. I want to be that guy at 85 years old that's like, yeah, let's go, guys. We're back here in another episode of Jimmy Rants, episode 10,945. Like, I want to be that guy. Still vibrant, still motivated, still going. Gonna do that. All right, thank you, Facebook. Let's pop over here now to YouTube. What's up, YouTube? See what you guys have to say. Seem fine, waiting for the second shot, says Paul. Well, good luck to you, Paul. In 1955 to 63, the polio V word had the Cutter incident, was hastily put out, actually caused polio. Yikes. Debbie says, switch to watching on YouTube instead of Facebook. Well, welcome, Debbie. I'm glad you're here. Why do they keep burying the PEG antibodies? It is really scary to think how many have these antibodies and don't know it. Yeah. I hope that's the take home from this Jimmy Rants, by the way. That if you don't know what your level of anti-PEG antibodies are, or if you have them or not have them, find out. Because before you get this V word injected into you, because it may be forced on us at some point, before it gets to that point, just know, I'm going to probably do this. I'm going to see if I can seek out a place to have the anti-PEG antibody. I'm going to look on like some of the, like anylabtestnow.com. I also use privatemdlabs.com. There's various places online where you can run your own tests. I'm going to look up to see if I could run these anti-PEG antibody tests and see where I stand. I don't think I use products that have PEG in them, but because I don't use Miralax. I do use like skincare products, but I haven't really looked closely at them. I try to use more natural ones as well, so probably not in me, but who knows? It's worth looking up. This makes me very angry. Debbie, you're not alone. You're not alone. I think a lot of people are highly angry at this because this is being thrust on us. I'm going to remind you, for something that has a recovery rate of over 99%. They are acting as if 9,1-DIVOC has a 30% death rate. That's the way they're acting. And so if they're acting that way with something that has a less than 1% death rate, why? Why all this hullabaloo over something with a more than 99% recovery rate? I have grandkids ages 25 to 3 months, want to be around to love on all of them. Well, I hope you are. I hope you are. But guys, the FDA, I'm going to remind you of one more thing. The FDA granted emergency use authorization. So EUA, the EUA only applies to letting it be used. It's not FDA approval. Of course, you and I both know FDA approval is kind of crap as well, but it's not approval. It's like we authorize you to use it in the sense of an emergency. They haven't granted approval. So what will they do, the FDA, if it turns out that there's a segment of the people getting inoculated getting sick and having adverse reactions? What will they do? And will there be some kind of a database kept of these people who get 9,1-DIVOC V-word and they have an adverse reaction? I hope some layperson out there is setting up that exact website where you can write to them, 9,1-DIVOC injury.com or whatever, 9,1-DIVOC V-word injury.com. Something simple that then people could write to them and say, okay, this is what happened. I got the V-word on this date. I developed this symptom. I developed this disease, or unfortunately, that my family member died, and have all that data and it all be right there in one place. It would be very interesting to see. I wonder if people in the trials signed an NDA, says Paul. Yeah, I don't know. I know that in one of the trials in Europe, I talked about this on Jimmy Rants recently, she reported on social media how she had adverse reactions during the trial. And now the this is rich. Now the drug company, I think it's Pfizer, is actually suing her for $13.8 million for libel, saying she's lying. So isn't that rich? You can't sue them, but they can sue you if you claim that you got injured by their V-word. To which I'd be like, why would you worry about it if you're the drug company? You can't be sued, so no harm, no foul other than reputation. That was weird. Joshua says we aren't even at the second dose and people are already having issues. Yeah, Joshua, that's what I said earlier. We're just seeing like the calm before the storm. Wait until about mid to late January when all these people getting the first dose now have to take their second dose. The Pfizer one, the second dose comes 21 days after the first one. The Moderna one comes 28 days after the first one. So all the people that's getting it now, even to today, by late January, they're going to get the second shot, and we're going to know pretty quick if there are some bad reactions. And in all the trials, in the phase 3 trials they did, whenever they had adverse reactions, it was to the second shot because it's a higher dose. I'm continually baffled at how little people know about this V-word and all the surrounding issues. Well, that's what I try to do here on Jimmy Rants, as you well know, Joshua, and I try to present the information in a very logical way, practical way. I just want you guys to have the information. And people don't like it that I do these kinds of Jimmy rants, by the way. I've heard from nurses especially, stay in your lane. Somebody told me today that I need to stay in my lane and stop talking about this. It was on YouTube, actually. You need to start championing these V words are going to save lives and da-da-da. I'm like, look, asking questions and providing information is not misinformation. It's information. It's giving people data that they can then go and make an informed decision for themselves and their family. And that's literally all I'm doing here. I have no vested interest in promoting or not promoting a V word. I don't really care. I myself am not taking this V word. Thankfully, I don't work for anyone but me, so my employer does not make me take it. And the only thing that would be a challenge is if they require it to fly, if they require it to travel to other countries, even require it to just go to a store. I'm going to have some issues at that point. But right now, it's not going to harm me in any way by not taking this and choosing to not take it. I've got a Jimmy Rants coming up on Thursday where they're going to use psychology to try to persuade you to take this V word. And when I get into that, we'll get into more of kind of the psychological manipulation they're going to try to do to convince you. But I think they've got a PEG problem that until they address the PEG issue, there are going to be a whole lot of people, if they find out why people are having adverse reactions, we find out why Tiffany Dover passed out on live television in Chattanooga, Tennessee, we'll find out that it's because she had high PEG in her system. Why aren't we doing mass anti-PEG antibody testing right now? And if you come back with anti-PEG antibodies in your system, you don't take the V word until we develop something different that does not use PEG in it for those people. This is not hard. Why can't they wrap their heads around why people have questions about this? But we'll keep bringing them up here on Jimmy Rants because that's what I do. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, engage live in the content. We go live right here on the Instagram page. It is Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. Go check me out. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you guys for being here. We also simulcast on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Thank you all for being here today, Jimmy Rants family. If you missed the live, you can watch it on the replay right here on the Jimmy Rants Instagram page. It goes right up on IGTV just as soon as we're over. We also throw the past episodes up over on YouTube. Type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Just a reminder, over on YouTube, we got a party today. We have a brand new episode of my new podcast called One Step Deeper. I do that show with my friend Brittany Davis. Brittany and I have a brand new episode 5, just in time for New Year's resolutions and wanting to change. So the topic that we talk about is you can't change what you hate. And so all the people wanting New Year's resolutions to change something about their body or something about themselves, you can't change what you hate. So we go really, really deep on that episode. So YouTube has a cool little thing where it lets you premiere episodes. So Brittany and I will be on a live chat. If you just go right to the page for the premiere and then click on the live chat, she and I will be in there as the show is airing live for you to watch. And we will interact with you while you're watching the show. It's kind of fun. We did that last week and had a lot of great participation. So we'd love to see you there as well. And then finally, pop on over to JimmyRants.com. That is the official website for this show. And you can see all the past episodes there. So coming up tomorrow, you guys, I have a brand new study. It's a review research paper in the BMJ Nutrition, Prevention, and Health. And it's by Lucia Aronica, Jeff Folick, Angela Poff, and Dominique D'Agostino. Big time names in the keto space, talking about personalizing your ketogenic diet based on your genetics. So I love it. This is where I think things are going in the nutrition world, trying to more personalize it, using all of these tools that we have at our disposal. So I will go over that paper with you guys here tomorrow. So until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we will see you then.